Yeah. 3-6, mafia.
Yeah.
Whoa. Hey, yeah. Whoa.
Say what?
Hey, whoa.
3-6 mafia.
Hey, whoa.
It's going down.
Whoa.
Y'all know what time it is. We ain't playing with you. In the club, in the street. Shut up!
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to No B.S. on this glorious Wednesday evening, ladies and gentlemen. We have myself, Isaiah, and John on tonight's program. We got some nice, great, football topics coming on for you today. Got some NFL, got some college football, and then our pigskin pick'ems and our amazing Power 5 segment tonight, ladies and gentlemen. But before we get down to that, let's go around the horn and see how everyone's doing tonight. Isaiah, how are you doing tonight, my good sir?
Trevor, I'm doing great. It's great to be back on No B.S. I don't think we did the show last week because I was occupied with work with the A's. So it's great to be back after, a week off from not doing the show. So that's great. I want to wish you boys a happy National Coffee Day today. National Coffee Day today it is. It's a really, really great day. One of my favorite holidays. I got a nice, amazing, freshly brewed cup of coffee in my hands today. So happy National Coffee Day to you guys and also to the fans out there. But we got a lot of great topics to talk about. I can't wait to get into some of the college football topic. There's one in particular that I'm really looking forward to get into. It's not the Clemson topic. Trevor, I think you know which one it is. But I'm looking forward to this show. It's going to be great. And, let's have a great show.
And John, how are you doing tonight, my good sir?
Oh, my goodness, man. I've never been more tired. It has been incredibly busy, and things are coming soon, anxiously, obviously, but we're good.
All righty, gentlemen, let's break down tonight's topics. We're diving in the NFL first. I know the Tampa Bay Buccaneers starting to beef up their defense. They just signed Richard Sherman. I don't know what this really entails for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Is it a good sign? Was it a wasteful sign for salary cap reasons? Or is it just it's a good piece to add on to your, secondary to maybe lock down either he wants to say, star wide receiver or, second in command behind the top wide receiver on any other offense side of the ball. But I want to go, Isaiah. Do you think this is a good sign for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers for signing Richard Sherman?
I think it's a really good signing for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and I'm super upset at Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch and the 49ers for not signing him because you have a major hole in your secondary. You just lost Josh Norman. You lost Williams. He's going to be out. So why not get Richard Sherman? You saw what Aaron Rodgers and the Packers offense did to your secondary, and he's the guy that I know he's not what he once was, but still, he's better than most of the members that you have currently in your secondary. But no, we're not going to sign Richard Sherman. We're going to roll with rookies instead. So I don't know what the Niners are doing, but to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, this is a great signing for them. I believe it was our last No BS show when we talked about this topic. I said that I believe that the 49 or the Buccaneers should sign Richard Sherman because there were reports that they were reaching out to him. I thought that it would be a great signing since right now Sean Murphy Bunting, he's got a dislocated elbow. He's going to be out a couple of weeks. They have Dean. He's also out for a few weeks. They also have Carlton Davis. He has some type of injury. So they're basically missing their three best corners. So right now, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers pass defense has been absolutely woeful this season, which is very surprising because last season or until the end of last season, they were one of the best pass defenses in the NFL. So just to take that step back, it's really, really jarring how bad they're playing right now. So it's a great signing because they needed him since their three top corners are just decimated by injuries right now. And once those guys come back, Richard Sherman can shift to a position where he's I feel like he's most comfortable in, and that is being the third best corner on the team. He doesn't have to be the number one corner anymore. He could just be, your number 3 corner. And I will say, having him as your number 3 cornerback behind Carlton Davis and Sean Murphy Bunting, that's a hell of a guy to have as your number 3 corner. So I really like this for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
And John, what about you? Do you think this is a good signing for Tampa Bay, bringing in Richard Sherman and helping out that secondary, or was it maybe they could have gone after somebody else instead?
I mean, it's a good signing. It doesn't harm them because based on his age and keyword what he used to be, it's not going to be $4 or $5 million here. Probably like the veteran minimum deal. So it's not like, let's say you shoot him out for like a 3-year contract for over $30 million. He busts out and then you basically release him or you trade him. He's a veteran minimum guy that isn't going to be the same as he used to be. That doesn't carry the fact that a lot of these contracts that we see on offense or defense, when they're veteran minimum contracts or they're past their prime, they could be a lot of help beyond just the field, having the mental capability. What do you do on this type of coverage? What do you do on this type of offensive play? Well, this defender would know it because he doesn't have that experience playing very good defense as they know being a part of the Legion of Boom. So it's definitely a good signing, but at the end of the day, I mean, it doesn't help him on the field that much because he isn't what he used to be. But to have that veteran leadership on defense, I definitely think is going to be key for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers the rest of the season.
Yeah, I agree with you on that, John. Having that veteran leadership and that secondary, teaching them the ins and outs of being a good defensive back and knowing how to shut down like other key star wide receivers for like the young up and coming talent on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to really, have a solid, I would say, core on defense where Tom Brady can manage the clock, making sure the defense can stay fresh as long as possibly can in a game. Because, when you have games that go a lot of back and forth, it wears down a lot of defenses, and you can see like 45 points to like 44 or 45 to 42 in that ballpark for points. But if you can keep the score like 28 to, 21 in a lot of those defensive battles, that's really going to help your team out and, saving the wear and tear, especially late in the season. Since we now have a, longer NFL season, it's definitely going to pay off when having that veteran leadership when you have those long stretches of, a nice, 4-game win streak, or you're trying to come off of a losing streak that you may run yourself into. I got some. Go, John.
Sure, go ahead.
I got some comments coming in from our fans, but I know before I go to that, I know you want to add on something before I start reading some comments.
Yeah, I definitely think that it's great to have the veteran leadership, especially when you have another team in the exact division who made the most underrated and underlooked free agent move of the 2021 season. This guy was a first-round pick, so now you got your Panthers making the move. Now it's like, okay, Tampa's like, we need to set a veteran guy who has that experience, and now it's gonna, in between those defenses playing against each other, offense, it's definitely going to be interesting.
Oh, for sure. I see some fun comments. I know Jesus Blackman puts a good one out there for you, John. Get it there, question mark guy. Is he the Riddler from Batman in DC?
That type of answer, that type of question probably has no answer to it. So
good there with the riddle right there, John. I like it. Adam, he's tuning in for tonight's program. Man, Trevor, it's been a while since I've done a show with you. It's a time, man. Yes, it has been, trying to deal with, life in general and trying to manage my time more efficiently. Definitely, when Roundtable comes back around after the NFL season, definitely you're going to catch me on with Coast to Coast and when we do that crossover with the MI6 and all that stuff after the NFL season. So that's probably going to be around February of 2022, but we'll see how it goes and depends on how the, fans are going to go with it. Also, David Lucas is saying, sup guys from YouTube, and Kirsty Wilson saying, hi guys. Full house tonight, love to see all of our fans participating and all that fun stuff. But let's move on to the second NFL topic for tonight's program, gentlemen. We have Joe Burrow versus Trevor Lawrence on tomorrow night, Thursday Night Football. Where else do you want to see young quarterbacks duke it out in a nice, ugly fashion for the playing for the bottom worst parts of the NFL right now? Though, it's going to be really interesting to see, Trevor Lawrence. Can he be able to step up to the plate and put up some key drives over Joe Burrow? Me personally, I don't think so. We've seen Joe Burrow in his rookie season before he went down. The man was a true champ. He lived up to his expectations, but besides the Cincinnati Bengals not giving him an offensive line, the man was leading 2-minute drives without a problem, without a hitch, and he could lead, fourth quarter comebacks if he had to. Like Joe Burrow was already acting like he was an elite veteran quarterback, even though in his first year. I think Joe Burrow is probably going to take care of business in this game, but who knows? Maybe Trevor Lawrence will step up to the plate and stun the world and say, hey, I'm getting back into the saddle. I'm getting to slowly adjust to the NFL. But I want to go to John first. Who do you think is going to have, a better game on Thursday Night Football?
If Trevor Lawrence couldn't beat Joe Burrow in the national championship game, now you're in the NFL, a much bigger game. There's no way Trevor Lawrence and this team is going to beat Joe Burrow. I mean, didn't the Bengals just beat, I believe, was it like the Steelers or somebody last week? I mean, maybe this is speaking about what Jesus said, maybe a question that is probably a dumb one. If Joe Burrow doesn't have the career that he does, is he the Matthew Stafford of the Bengals? But we'll talk about that later. But no, there's absolutely no way the Jaguars are going to beat the Bengals here. I mean, Trevor Lawrence is the same thing with the Jaguars, as we know. Offensive line. And even if they got that going, Urban Meyer is not properly using James Robinson. You have to utilize him more, especially when you have your first-round pick from 5.5 months ago, who was out for the entire season. Of course, anything is possible. Well, Joe Burrow's arm and Trevor Lawrence so far has been a huge turnover machine, regardless of having Marvin Jones and their running back, who doesn't just run the football. Trevor, we both know Trevor is that running backs, most of them run the football, catch the football, they block, they do all different types of positions. But no, it's not the most exciting Thursday Night Football matchup. But it's better than Daniel Jones tripping on his own foot. But I'm picking the Bengals tomorrow.
All right. And you, Isaiah, what do you think? Who's going to have a better night, on Thursday Night Football? Is it going to be, mighty Joe Burrow, the king of the Tigers, or with Tony the Tiger with the Cincinnati Bengals? Or, yes, John, I see I made you laugh, or the Jacksonville Jaguars with, Trevor Lawrence? Who do you pick and why?
Well, when I look at this game, I know everybody right now is saying that, this is not going to be a great matchup and blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. Well, you guys, I don't know if you guys remember 4 years ago or 5 years ago, everybody said the same thing when it was Niners versus Rams on Thursday Night Football. Shanahan versus McVay with Brian Hoyer versus Jared Goff, and everybody was like, yeah, these two teams, it's going to be a terrible game. And that ended up being one of the best games of the 2017 NFL season, as it was like 44-41 or something like ridiculous in that range. It was like a college football game. I anticipate that this game is going to be like that game. It's going to be a high-scoring shootout because these two teams' defenses absolutely suck. It's going to be, back and forth. And you know what? I'm going with the Jags. Give me the Jags in this game. I think the Jags finally get that first win of the season. And Adam Barber, I know right now you're probably watching this show in disgust, but I'm going to say that these two quarterbacks are going to have a great game. I think both of them throw for at least 300 yards because I'm predicting a shootout. It's hard to say who has a better game because, when it's a shootout, their numbers are kind of identical, right? I'm going to pick Trevor Lawrence. Give me Trevor Lawrence to have a better game over Joe Burrow. I think it's going to be a shootout. I think we're going to see a scoring range in the 30s for both teams. It's going to be a great game. Looking forward to it.
I really don't know because I think it's just going to be I want to say it's going to be a defensive battle, and the offensive line is just that poor on both teams. It's just not going to go anywhere. Like, I can see this game being like, 2017 by the end of it. And it's like, okay, we just watched a defensive showdown. Nothing else to it. Because if Joe Burrow had a line that would be a different story. We all know what would happen if Joe Burrow actually had an offensive line. I could see Cincinnati finishing second or maybe even first of the AFC North, depending, what ends up happening. Yes, John, I know you thought about it. But if Joe Burrow had an offensive line, it's very possible. The Steelers are aging. Lamar Jackson just runs the ball, and then you just had Cleveland. The Cleveland Browns are going through injuries, so it's very possible for, Cincinnati to somehow pull it out if they had an offensive line, but they don't.
When you talk about this game, at least, is that the Jaguars just traded their first-round pick from 2 years ago. Your best pass protection player. You did the same thing 2 or 3 years ago again to another guy who's doing pretty phenomenal in LA. So now on the passing attack, the Jaguars have nobody on the interior defense line. All they got is Josh Allen and one other defensive player. So besides that, Joe Burrow can just give the ball to the running back or throw deep down to Jamar Chase. Because who on the defensive side of the ball for the Jaguars, in terms of linebackers, safeties, or quarterbacks, is going to stop Jamar Chase? Nobody. And that's where I think Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase are going to have not just a great day of fantasy football, but a great day of football on the field, especially the Jaguars are not known really for their passing attack. You traded first-round corners twice in less than 5 seasons.
All righty, gentlemen. Let's keep on Isaiah, you want to add on something before we move on to college football?
Yes, but you could also say the same thing about the Bengals, though. Who in the Bengals is going to be able to sack Trevor Lawrence and be able to stop that Jaguars offense? Both these two teams, defensively, they're rubbish. They don't have an offensive line. They're kind of similar in that way. So that's why I'm anticipating a shootout, because I don't trust any of these two defenses to get a stop.
It's not the defense. It's that Trevor Lawrence and this offense has been able to do nothing. Urban Meyer, like you said, has not been able to use their running back, James Robinson, at all, who had a great year last year. So if you have an offense who hasn't been able to find the rhythm, they've lost every single game, regardless of game. Both teams are pretty terrible. But I'm just saying, because of the pass attack on Jaguars just traded your first-round pick for whatever reason, I'm going to pick Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase.
All right, gentlemen, let's move on to some college football now. I know we see it getting spicy after finishing week 4 in the college football season. But the first topic of tonight, we all know what's happening. We're looking at the Clemson Tigers. They lost to NC State, the Wolfpack, and boy, it was something to see. But now Clemson, and now sits, I believe, number 25 in the ranking polls for the AP. Guys, is Clemson on the ropes at this point? Are they even going to finish ranked by the end of the year? I'll go to Isaiah. What do you think the fate of Clemson is going to be? I didn't think they were going to lose a second game this early. I thought they were going to lose it more towards week 10, but it happened. It's been 4 weeks and they're 2-2. What's going to happen to them for the rest of the season?
Trevor, John, Clemson is dead. Let's face it, they're not making the playoffs this season. They're dead. It's over for the Clemson Tigers, because in college football, in the history of the college football playoff, you haven't seen a 2-loss team make the college football playoff. And with how pathetic Clemson has looked offensively this season, heck, you could see them lose a 3rd game or even a 4th game this season. Because if you look at the Clemson offense this season, they've only scored, I believe, 4 touchdowns against Power 5 competition. That's it. 4 touchdowns against Power 5 competition. They didn't score anything against Georgia, which I don't blame them, because Georgia's defense is amazing this year. But then against NC State, I'm trying to remember who else they played, but against NC State and the other team that I'm forgetting off the top of my head, they've only scored 4 offensive touchdowns this season. And their quarterback, DJ Uiagalelei, I believe, he's only gotten 2 passing touchdowns against Power 5 competition. The reason why Clemson has struggled this season, it's not because of their defense. Their defense is phenomenal. Just ask Georgia how great Clemson's defense is. Clemson's defense is keeping the Clemson Tigers in ball game. If that defense was anything short of remarkable, Clemson would be losing these games by double digits. They'd be looking like USC out there on the football field. But their offense right now, the problem with their offense is, well, you could attribute it to the fact that they lost Trevor Lawrence, and DJ Uiagalelei has not looked good at all season long and has looked like one of the most overrated quarterbacks in all of college football, which I'm not surprised because last season he played Notre Dame, and then I believe he played, I'm guessing it was Georgia Tech, and Georgia Tech is terrible. Let's face it, Georgia Tech was terrible. So I'm not surprised that he balled out against Notre Dame. He balled out. But let's take into consideration, fellas, the reason why he balled out. It's because he was the backup to Trevor Lawrence. Opposing teams had no film on him. Heck, Dabo Swinney didn't even announce him as their starter until halfway through Notre Dame week. So Notre Dame had only like 2 or 3 days to prep for DJ Uiagalelei and had no film on him besides what he did in high school. And you can't measure that with what's going on in college. So now that team has had film on him, they've had time to prepare for him. Now he's getting exposed as one of the most overrated quarterbacks and overhyped quarterbacks in all of college football. I'm looking at you, Paul Feinbaum, who said that he was going to win the Heisman this season. Now you look at it, and he looks even worse than Brian Hoyer in his prime. But going to the real root of Clemson's offensive problems, it's their offensive line, fellas. Georgia completely dismantled Clemson. Their defensive line completely dismantled Clemson's offensive line. Clemson's offensive line coming into the season was a real question mark. They gave up 9 sacks in that game to Georgia. And then they come back the next week, they gave up 7 sacks. So this offensive line, I don't care who you have at quarterback. If you have Tom Brady at quarterback or Drew Brees at quarterback, and you still have that same offensive line at quarterback or same offensive line, it's going to be the same problem. That's why football is won in the trenches. You can have all the great offensive weapons in the world, but if you have a terrible offensive line that doesn't give you any time to throw the football and doesn't open up any holes for your running game, that's why you're going to struggle. And that's why Clemson is struggling right now, because they can't run the football, because the offensive line can't open up holes to save their lives for that running attack. And DJ Uiagalelei, he's only getting like 1 or 2 seconds to throw the football before he gets hit. So that's the root of Clemson's problem. It's that offensive line, which is a total disaster right now. And Trevor and John, I'm looking at the rest of Clemson's schedule with how bad they've struggled right now, and with how bad the offensive line has struggled, with how bad DJ has struggled, with how bad Clemson DJ's his connection with the wide receivers seem to be. I could see them losing a couple of more games. I would not be shocked if they finish the season unranked at all.
Yeah, I know. To recap some of Clemson's games before I go to John, they played Georgia. The score was 10-3. They played SC State. They ended up winning that game 49-3. Then they beat Georgia Tech 14-8. See, it's just like when they play teams that are in the Power 5, they're struggling. And then on top of it off, in their own conference with NC State, final score was 27-21. It's just, are they afraid to play real competitions? 2 overtimes. Yep, you're right. Are they afraid to play real competitions? They play Boston College, who is 4-0 right now. So I don't think Boston College has really played anyone, I want to say. But at the same time, if this is a prime, target for Boston College to cause some havoc, Boston College really hasn't played anyone. I guess you could say it's Missouri, but Missouri is really more the bottom of the SEC, give or take on how you want to look at it. But John, Clemson, what do you think about them? Are they going to finish ranked by the end of the year? Are they going to be unranked? Are they going to be a team with 4 losses? What do you got for us?
They're going to be ranked in the toilet bowl game. They don't even deserve to be ranked for a toilet bowl game going 2 and whatever on the season. Clemson is done this year. Clemson is done next year. So many times over the years you had, of course, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, was it not Sammy Watkins, but it was DeAndre Hopkins. He had so many great players over the years, but now you don't have a quarterback. You don't have anything. Like you said, the offensive, and as they've been saying the same thing I've said for a year and a half when I talked about Stafford, like February, March of last year, before, of course, what's been happening in the world right now. And so you look at it, I mean, I picked Clemson not because of the quarterback, but it's the ACC. Like, yeah, I picked Clemson to win the ACC, but now if they have a chance to lose 3 or 4 games, and now they have a chance to be unranked, does this like the future of the ACC is either it's a little bit more interesting, or it's maybe the NFC least of college football? I don't know, because there's obviously worse teams than Mexico State Aggies, of course, but it definitely the future of the ACC is definitely more interesting now, because Clemson isn't what it has been in the past. Let's maybe 5, 7, 6.5 years.
All right, gents, we have a lot, going on else in the college football world. The other part of the college football, the weird Cinderella story that we didn't think that was going to be there. But before I get to that one, I'll read some quick comments real quick. Kirsty Wilson thinks that Clemson's going to finish the season unranked. So that can kind of tie up for our Clemson topic. But gentlemen, we have a newcomer into the college football, I shouldn't say rankings, but making their way into the top 10 for the first time in a while. Let me bring up the picture to really sum it up. It's Arkansas, ladies and gentlemen. They took care of business. Now they're ranked 8, and they're facing Georgia this week.
Love it, Trevor. Love it.
In an interesting fashion. I think Arkansas fans can finally actually, take their brown paper bags off their heads and actually feel proud into this matter. But the real question, ladies and gentlemen, at this point in time is Arkansas for real? Are they just pretenders, or are they actually gonna, do decent in the SEC? I know their schedule is not pretty for the end. I'll just lay it out there for you, ladies and gentlemen, what they have left. After Georgia, they will face Ole Miss. Let's say if they beat Georgia, Ole Miss will move up in rankings with that. Auburn will also move up in rankings, because right now after Ole Miss, they'll play Auburn. Then they play a cupcake nobody. Then they play Mississippi State. I shouldn't disrespect the cupcake nobody. I should say their name. They the A.R. Pine Bluff. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, a small school. After that, you have Mississippi State. Then after Mississippi State, you got LSU. After that, Alabama. And then they finish off with Missouri. As you can see, they got a lot of ranked matchups. In my eyes, if they win out, how can you not crown Arkansas number 1? And then they will probably face Georgia again in the SEC title game, which will probably still be another top 5 matchup for them. If they win that, in my eyes, you got to crown them number 1. If you don't crown them number 1 at that point, I don't know what the committee's thinking at that point in time. You got ranked teams for the top, basically, 15 onwards for them to the finish. And if they don't get that, number 1 or number 2 spot, I would say just number 1 at that point if they went out. You don't belong to ranked college football and have a biased opinion anymore, just to be honest with folks. But I'll go to John. Is Arkansas for real, or are they pretenders? I know they took care – I shouldn't say – they beat your Texas Longhorns.
They didn't just take care of the Aggies. They bullied them.
Yeah, so what do you think? Are they for real, or are they just pretenders right now?
Right now, they are surprising a lot of people and playing very well. But it's kind of hard to call them either good or pretenders, because let's wait. It's only been, 4.5 weeks in college football. So, again, anything can happen. And I hope they lose every single game in week 4. I want them to lose. I want them to have a terrible season and not even make the Toilet Bowl game, obviously, because I take football and college football very seriously. But, I mean, I definitely think they're a good, very great team. But I wouldn't say they're for real just yet. For real is when you beat that top dog team and make the college football playoffs. Same goes for UT and other college football teams.
Oh, for sure. I think Georgia is the pinnacle game where it's like if they can upset Georgia or even play close to Georgia, you could say, they're kind of for real. It's like if they get blown out, then yes, you could argue that there are more of the lines of being a pretender and they just got lucky in the A&M and Texas games. But at the same time, those programs, sit in the top 10 most every year. So it's just like trying to see how, Arkansas went from being like 3-9 most years and not really having, great seasons to just springboard and being undefeated right now, facing the number 2 team in the nation and happening to, maybe pull up the upset and upset number 2 Georgia. And if they do that, I just pictured the bandwagon form that I posted in MI6 group chat where everyone's going to start trying to be an Arkansas fan now. But I don't think that's actually going to happen just
That
yet.
would never happen. I'd rather cut off my left or my foot than ever root for Arkansas or A&M or Army.
All right, John. Isaiah, what do you think about Arkansas? You know, what do you got for us?
Let me start off by first apologizing to my guy, Stephen Gillespie, for laughing at his Arkansas Razorbacks when I think Trevor, you were on that show when he first came on, right? And he first came on, I believe, as a guest, and we talked about the Razorbacks, and we were all like saying how like, oh, you know, Arkansas is one of the worst teams in all of college football, and them hiring Sam Pittman, it's not gonna do anything because it doesn't matter who you hire. That program is rotting. It's rotting from the core up or from the core down, and you know, we all said, you know, Arkansas, you know, well, let's say, you know, 4 or 5 years down the line, they might reach the bowl game and they might have a winning record. It'll be progress for them. And wow, man, looking back on what we were saying on that show, Trevor, our words aged bad, man. It aged
As most of your takes do.
so bad. And I remember even saying like Arkansas is worse than the old Cleveland Browns. So Steven, yeah, I apologize for all the stuff that, you know, me, Trevor, and everybody else said about your Arkansas Razorbacks. Proud of your Arkansas Razorbacks for what they have accomplished so far in the last 2 years. You know, Sam Pittman, I laughed at that hire when they got Sam Pittman, who was the offensive line coach at Georgia, never been a coordinator at any point in his career, always just been an offensive line coach. I was like, this is one of the worst hires of the college football coaching carousel. And you know, they're trying to be like Ed Orgeron. You know, Ed Orgeron was a position coach for much of his career, never was a coordinator. They're trying to be like LSU, and this is not going to work out. Trust me, this is not going to work out. And Sam Pittman has made me eat my words, man. He's a hell of a recruiter. He's a hell of a motivator. He's a guy that is just truly a really lively coach. You know, I've had the opportunity to watch some of his press conferences and some of like his mic'd up videos. He's just an amazing coach that you would run through a wall for, and he's really resuscitated this program. I mean, who would have thought that Arkansas, was down in the dumps, literally one of the worst programs in all of college football, would become how they are right now, number 8 in the country. Trevor, am I correct in saying that?
Yep.
Yeah, number 8 in the country in just 2 years. It's remarkable what Sam Pittman has done. What Arkansas has done well that we just lamented Clemson for is that they've built through the trenches. Their offensive line is amazing. They're pushing people left and right. I mean, look at the running game. I mean, their offensive line is opening up huge holes for Traylon Smith, the running back, and also KJ Jefferson as well, and also Raheem Sanders. And it's giving guys like KJ Jefferson a lot of time to throw the football. So, you know, their offensive line is great, and their defensive line is just wrecking havoc on the opposing team's offense, and also their linebackers and their secondaries as well. They've really built through the trenches, and that's what you need to win in college football. And also, Coach Pittman has hired some really, really great staff members to coach under him. You know, Barry Odom is one of the best hires in the last couple of years. You know, he hired him as his defensive coordinator. The guy was, I believe, the head coach at Missouri. And he's a really, really great defensive mind. You know, he's running a lot of coverages that are really confusing a lot of these young quarterbacks because a lot of these young quarterbacks have not seen them before. And also their offensive coordinator, I believe his name is Kendall Briles, the son of Art Briles. He's also putting in a really great offensive scheme there at Arkansas. Are they for real? For me, And I'm hoping that these words do not age bad, because if they do, that means they would have beaten my Georgia Bulldogs. But
Ooh.
they're not for real. Come on, man. They're being Texas. Come on. When's the last time Texas been relevant? And they beat Texas A&M. Good for them. Texas A&M was missing their starting quarterback, who's out for the year with a broken leg. They're playing with a backup quarterback. They're not for real. Let me see them beat a Georgia this weekend. If they can go into Athens and beat Georgia, I will go on my knees and apologize to Stephen Gillespie on a live video. Let me see them beat Alabama.
Steven, I'm monitoring this. I'll send this clip to you.
Let me see them beat Auburn. Let me see them beat any of those, monsters in the SEC before I say that they are for real. I don't believe that they are for real. They are a nice story, and I hope they make a bowl game, but they're not for real. Come on, man.
This is probably not going to age well. I can see it already.
That's the thing it's the same thing goes for UT and other college football teams. You have to beat the big dogs, and on top of that, you have to make the college football playoffs, and you have to win your division. You have to do all these things. But okay, I'll be real. If we say we can't do that in the NFL, we definitely should be doing college football. It's 4 games. You play phenomenal. Done great things the last 2 years, but wait till we see in week 10, week 11, week 12, week 13, week 14. Then we can have a conversation about it.
Oh, for sure. Isaiah, I'll let you introduce the next topic in the college football segment. Go for it, my friend.
Actually, before we do that, could I read Ishmael's comment?
Go for it.
All right, so Ishmael has a comment for us. He says, we just talked about that Clemson topic, and we got some time left on the program before, we have to jump to some of these other topics because the show is kind of going by really quick. And that is, do you guys believe that Clemson's dynasty is finished? I believe they've won like two national championships. They've been to the national championship game, I believe, 4 times. They've won 2, or they might have been 3. I'm making a mistake on that. But Trevor, I'll start with you first on this. Is Clemson's dynasty now over?
It's really tough to say. It depends how they do recruiting next year and all that stuff. Obviously, a lot of teams, as we're seeing right now, like the top teams, like Ohio State, Clemson, and the teams that we normally saw sit in the top, 5 every year, have trickled down towards the middle of the top 15 now, because they got a lot of young talent, and they now have to build them up. So this, I would say, they're not rebuilding; they're just reloading for a year. Once they get that situated, you could see them rebirth and being dynamic again. I could see it, but like I said, it really depends on how Dabo recruits in the following offseason. If he can get enough talent and a lot of people are motivated to go for another national title push, you could say they just have one off year and they're back on it. I don't think the dynasty's over yet. If they have another bad season where they go, 9-3, then yeah, I can say the dynasty's over. I'm thinking it's just a year that they're reloading. That's how I'm going to picture this. I don't think it's over just yet, but depending how this season goes, if they really tank it, then yeah, I might be eating my words. The dynasty could be over if they really lose the rest of their games, which I doubt,
Yeah, I think I agree with you on that too, because I chalk it up to it being a bad year. I think that DJ Uiagalelei, I think that he is more of Kelly Bryant than Trevor Lawrence. Trevor, you remember when they went from Kelly Bryant to Trevor Lawrence? Kelly Bryant was not playing good football at all. He wasn't. He was like all right. And then they made the switch to Trevor Lawrence, and then all of a sudden they were just outstanding. I just think DJ Uiagalelei, he's just not that good. I think everybody overhyped him and overrated him in the offseason. And I think that Clemson, they just need that next star quarterback to come in, because Dabo, he's going to recruit, he's going to get that next star quarterback to come in. And also they need that, they need a bunch of, they're going to, because Dabo's always going to get those 5-star recruits, whether it's quarterback, offensive line, all that stuff. So I think, like you said, Trevor, I think they are reloading. I think that they'll be fine. This year they're done, but next year I expect Clemson to be back to where they are before this season, and I think the offensive line will be much improved. But John, I'll go to you next. Is Clemson's dynasty now over?
Yes!
Yes! Yes!
Yes, it simply is. I think when you look at it in college ways, you can see re-recruiting and everything else, but as you start to see other teams move into different divisions in college football, those teams are going to get better. Players are getting paid now even more, are actually getting paid. So more teams in different divisions are going to be better at recruiting in the next season or two because of all these different college football rules. So yes, I think it definitely is over. Now, obviously, Dabo Swinney's going to do phenomenal recruiting, but frankly, folks, the answer is
Yes! Yes! Yes!
yes.
All right.
All right. Going into our next topic, I know we have a couple more comments. We're going to skip those.
I love this comment, David. I don't know who you are, but I just screenshotted that. Thank you very much, whoever you are.
But hey, if Georgia loses, you better believe I ain't going to be on the show for the next 2 months.
So you will own up to it because if Texas wins or lose, I will do my best to be on the show, depending on my work schedule.
But going into our final college football topic for the night, and it's a topic that I'm really enjoying and I'm really looking forward to, because you guys all know I do not like Ohio State at all. And when something happens to them, anything bad that happens to them, I'm out here, like Stephen A. Smith, either laughing at them or just popping champagne like I just won a Super Bowl. But so on Saturday, Ohio State played Akron and they beat Akron 59-7. But the story of that game was not the game. It was Ohio State linebacker Kayvon Pope. He after a mistake that he made on the field, he was benched and he walked off the field, literally walked off the field by himself, went into the locker room, and he quit the team in the middle of Ohio State's game. And he tweeted F Ohio State afterwards. Pope has since been dismissed from Ohio State's football team by head coach Ryan Day. Trevor, you are a diehard Ohio State fan and an Ohio State alum. I've been waiting to see your reaction to this story since it first came out, because I know you're going to have a lot of stuff to say about it. But for me, it's like this. How about them Buckeyes, man? Anything like this happening in Buckeye Nation, it's always amazing. But Trevor, what is your thoughts on Ohio State linebacker Kayvon Pope's actions on Saturday night? And what's your overall thoughts on what he did and being dismissed from the team afterwards?
I think what ended up happening there, what he did for his actions, I think they weren't really necessary. I would say it's very unprofessional what he did. But like looking at some of the Twitter posts by the people who are like verified as the actual real celebrities, that's who they are. I've heard many different stories, but the one thing that caught out to me, I was reading, was that he even threw his gloves into the stands before he left. So I'm like saying this guy was extremely upset what ended up happening. But on top of that, he went to social media. That is like a death trap with your emotions. If you go say anything at a big time university and just throw a couple curse words here and there and say, F this school, you're not going to be able to transfer. Bottom line, your career is basically done. After you posted that tweet, no other school would want an athlete like that. We can find other 5-star recruits out there to play, a linebacker position. It's a no-brainer. It's like, all right, he's gone. Next man steps up. That's how these big universities are. But if it was a small school, it would hurt a lot more. But when you're like an Ohio State, Penn State, Alabama, Georgia, USC, Oregon, they would just find a replacement part and put another new linebacker in, train them up to speed, say, you're the guy on the show right now. We didn't need the other guy, really. Obviously, the coach would come up with, addressing the issue at hand, saying, hey, this is what happened. We addressed it. We took care of it. And they would just move on. They wouldn't dwell on it because that's how these big programs operate. Now his career and whatever he does for the rest of his life, his name will be attached to that tweet and will never be deleted. So now he's got to figure out how to, improve himself as a person to gain people's trust back. And that's going to take a long time to do because we all know how social media is after you done screw up. It's not forgiving. It's very unforgiving at that point in time, I would say.
Exactly, man. And John, before I go to you, let me give my take on this. And as much as I hate Ohio State and laugh at anything unfortunate that happens to the Ohio State Buckeyes, this was probably up there as one of the most entertaining incidents ever. But I gotta agree with you, Trevor. This was unprofessional. This was not only unprofessional, this was selfish. They always talk about football as a brotherhood. Your teammates are your brothers. And this dude, when you're quitting in the middle of the game, was basically a middle finger to not only the coaches, it was basically a middle finger to your teammates and your brothers out there on the football field. You just walked out on them. That's what you basically did. You guys trained together. I mean, I think this guy was at Ohio State for 2 years. You guys been through the ups and the downs together, and you just walked out on them. That's what your action spoke for itself. And like you said, Trevor, this dude, he throws his glove, walks off the field. He deserved to be dismissed. It's basically like, quitting your job. And I watched some clips yesterday of people quitting their job in a very entertaining way. This is basically like that. This guy literally quit. So he doesn't deserve to be on the Ohio State Buckeyes football team. If Ryan Day didn't dismiss him, well, then there's something wrong with Ryan Day's head, because this dude deserved to be dismissed from the football team. But I thought what Kayvon Pope did was absolutely selfish. I thought that, he basically gave the middle finger to the coaches that spent so much time and effort to recruit him to come to Ohio State, so much time and effort to developing him as a player, and also to his teammates who probably spent a lot of time, caring for him, and also spent a lot of time just helping him on the football field and off the football field as well. And also his friends, because let's face it, he probably had some friends on the roster and he just walked out on them too. So this was, in my opinion, a giant middle finger to all the coaches, all the players, and all of his brothers on the football field. But John, you heard about this incident. This dude walks off the field, quits his team in the middle of the game, and like Trevor said, he throws his gloves to the stands and he tweets F Ohio State afterwards. What is your thoughts on this incident that happened on Saturday in Columbus? I don't think I've seen John so speechless before.
Why? Was this the same player that I believe was spitting at the fans in the stands, or was that another player I'm thinking of at Clemson?
I'm not too sure. If you said it was at Clemson, then I don't think.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, I
the
think it's a
same
different
player.
guy.
But this, you said they beat Akron, but they demolished them 59-7. So what I don't understand is, why would you be cursing out your so-called now employer, because college football players get paid for what? Y'all were demolishing your opponent. Did you get in a tiff with one of the coordinators? You immature brat. It just doesn't make any sense. There is no reason, you immature child, and you don't deserve to be in the NFL. You don't deserve to be at Ohio State. You don't deserve to get a football job, because now it's like, this not just, like you said, Trevor said, it impacts you in the future and trust. It's not just about football. It's about relationships or future marriage. Oh, your girl's thinking about, I'm thinking about marrying this guy. Oh, I remember a story I heard about you. What if he bails out on me and then starts cursing me out? You don't, or cursing out of it, and you don't know. This just plays a lot of what if scenarios. Why? That's the part I don't get. I get being pissed off, like, say, if you got demolished, but you demolished them like 59-7. Why all of a sudden, halfway through the game, you're just gonna curse out a team that you were playing on for 2 years, and you'll demolish? You were just in a national championship game, and you demolished your opponent. What was the point? What was the point of the random outburst? That would be like if we're just randomly doing a show, and then I decide to say, Trevor, Isaiah, you both, and walked out. That's the same thing, because it came out of nowhere. That's the part. Like, there's no link of, oh, you got in a tiff, you're losing, you weren't getting some playing time. I could get being frustrated about that. But cursing at your employer for no reason, that's the part, Trevor and Isaiah, that's literally a toddler tantrum. He's literally a toddler in a grown man's body. The reason why I'm frustrated about it, because like I say, I don't know okay, it doesn't matter the reason, but I don't know the reason. Like, what do you, about to say a certain word I shouldn't say. Well, why are you flagging out? Like, seriously, like, Trevor, I know you're a house safety, but it baffles me. Because now your career's over, obviously. They're just delaying it, and there's maybe some PR stuff, or I don't know. I don't work in college football. But it's over for you, dude. Not just jobs, relationships, and potential sponsors you could have had in the next week or two, and if y'all get back to this championship game and potentially won it, all those things could have happened. You could have been a top pick in a couple of years. And David, you're right. He shouldn't, just like what me and Isaiah were saying, is that he shouldn't have started by college football, anything. He can't be trusted. And that trust takes a while to get back. This isn't Loki here in Marvel. It could be flipped with the top of a switch. I just don't understand. Like, why? And I know it's repeating myself. It just baffles me, Trevor and Isaiah. Like, out of the blue, you're winning like 40 plus to like 7. And you just decide to outburst for why? I don't know what else to say, because there's no reason for him to do that.
And I think MI6 really captures it the best. Anger issues can ruin careers. That's basically can sum it up in a nutshell. But I think David helped us fill it in for that. He got benched because he messed up on a play. And then
got angry.
Wait, hold on. He's getting mad that thank you for clarifying that he got benched because he messed up on the play. It's not like they were going to bench you for the rest of the season. It's not like they were going to bench you for your rest of your career. You still could have been a potential interesting pick in the draft. And with an NFC team, you don't know. You could have been, obviously this isn't going to happen. This wouldn't have happened regardless if this situation happened or not. Could have played Washington or Denver or the history of San Francisco or anything. All those things could have been possible. You could have been paid for your parents' house, whoever your parents are. All that stuff could have happened, which is what I aspire and a lot of us do. You won't be able to. You won't be a 7th round pick. You won't be an undrafted rookie free agent. You won't be anything. And that's unfortunate. I would rather have Ryan Shazier on my football team right now than this guy. And then he retired from the NFL for a very good reason. It just doesn't make sense, though. Because Trevor, like, I know we've all made mistakes, but it's like, I've been in that recently. Like, if I say something that I'm going to regret, then opportunities are going to disappear and everything else. Like, dude, I don't know what to say, man. It's just, I'm disappointed.
All right. I think that's how we can wrap up that segment of college football. But now we go into more of our fun topics. We got our glorious pigskin pick'ems, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to our favorite time in our show, in our tonight's program, where we select 2 college football games and 2 NFL football games and figure out which teams are going to win. Let's start off in the world of college football because we just finished up that segment, and then we'll backtrack to the NFL. Ladies and gentlemen, so the first game for tonight's Pigskin Pick'ems is Michigan, who's ranked 14th in the nation, at Wisconsin. Wisconsin had a difficult time with Notre Dame last Saturday. I personally think that Wisconsin is going to be hungry and seeking a victory since they just got bushwhacked by Notre Dame last Saturday. So I'm going to go with the upset with Wisconsin being hungry at home at Camp Brandel, and they're going to play jump around in the fourth quarter, and Wisconsin's going to win that thing at the tail end of it. I'm going to go with that score. I really don't know because the Badgers have been a real hit and miss right now, so I can't give you a score prediction. So I'll go to Isaiah. Who you going to pick? I know you're probably going to pick Michigan.
Well, Trevor, we should honestly start keeping records or pigskin pick'em, because every time it's like we pick it, and then it'll be fun to keep a record to see who actually got the most correct afterwards. But you're right. in saying that this could potentially be an upset because Michigan, no matter if Michigan has been down or they've been one of the best teams in all of college football, they've always seemed to have trouble against Wisconsin, no matter where they play, whether it's in Michigan, in Ann Arbor, or in Camp Randall, and especially in Camp Randall, they've always had issues in Camp Randall. You know, it's really tough, man. Because you don't know what Wisconsin team you're expecting. Are you expecting the Wisconsin team that played lights out and came so close to beating Penn State, or are you expecting the Wisconsin team that got demolished by Notre Dame? You know, Wisconsin, and me and you talked about this before the show. The thing about Wisconsin is their quarterback sucks. He's kind of like Alex Smith, game manager type of a quarterback. Even Adam Barber, our good man, hates him. He posted on Facebook, I believe, when Wisconsin was losing Notre Dame, why is this guy keep starting? He's only thrown like 1 or 2 touchdown passes in the last 7 games. So he's not that good of a quarterback. But the rest of the team is really good. Their running game is really good. Their offensive line is really good. Their defensive line is really good. Their defense overall is really good. You know, I'm going to go pick Michigan just because I think that Michigan has the better quarterback, and I think quarterback play will be big to determine this game. I think that Wisconsin will be able to hold down Michigan's great running game that they've had for the past several weeks. It's going to force Cade McNamara to throw the football, and Cade McNamara can beat you with his arm, and I just don't see that. I don't see how, like, let's say Michigan gets up like 17-7. I just don't see how Jack Hurts, I think that's his name, I don't think Hurts will be able to beat Michigan with his arm if he's required to, and Michigan is just stuffing the run game because Michigan's been a really good run-stopping team this entire season. I think they're going to be able to stop the run, force the quarterback to have to throw the football, and he's going to throw a couple of picks, and it's going to be over just like that. So I'm going to go with Jim Harbaugh and the Michigan Wolverines, who are going to make Callan McClurg be a sad, sad man on Saturday.
And John, who do you pick? Do you pick Michigan or do you pick the Badgers? Who do you got for us?
Factors because when a team plays pissed off and they literally have something to prove, they clearly, like Trevor said in a nice way, they struggled, and you're trying to cut back. You're totally focused. You're pissed off, ready to win. It's kind of hard to stop that, even if maybe the talent is a little bit off the Wisconsin. I think they can win it, but it's not going to be like a 35 or no. It's going to be a really, really close game, but in the end, Wisconsin's going to come out with a dub.
Casey King got us some right here. I think he's going with Wisconsin with the upset victory, 24-20 over Michigan. Yep. Next up, ladies and gentlemen, before I go on, I think Michigan hasn't gone on the road yet, and due to the and will probably are due for a shock. Thank you for the insight. Yeah, I think that road game is going to be something critical, and we all saw what Wisconsin was like when they had all their fans and how Penn State struggled during that first week 1 type of matchup. But we'll see if the crowd plays into a factor. As we all know, the 12th man is real in the college football stadiums because of how they're designed. But we'll see how that game unfolds out on Saturday. Next up in our number 2 slot, ladies and gentlemen, we have Cincinnati, who's number 7 in the nation, at number 9, Notre Dame. This game, I would say, is Cincinnati's entry to the college football playoffs if they win out for the rest of their games. If you can beat Notre Dame, you have a legitimate chance of slipping into the 4th spot it's a big if you have a lot of teams who have 1 losses that are in the Power 5. That's all they need to do that happens. And so far, it looks like the top teams are on that trajectory of having 1 losses. So I'm going to go with Notre Dame being so wishy-washy where you don't know what you're going to get. You're going to get either a dominant Notre Dame team like we saw last Saturday, or we're going to get a Notre Dame team that struggle against a Toledo. So with that being said, I'm going to go with Cincinnati, and they're going to hold their ground in a close, ugly fashion game where it's going to be probably, I want to say like the score is probably going to be 28-21, something along those lines. And Cincinnati's going to pull it out and is going to stun Notre Dame at home. It's going to be the biggest shock, you could say, in the college football world in quite some time, besides Arkansas's rampage through the SEC at the moment. But I'll go to John to start us off. Who do you got, Cincinnati or Notre Dame?
There's no way I'm picking Notre Dame. I mean, Notre Dame is like, what's a word that I'm going to say without getting canceled by some BS person on Twitter? No, don't say that. But really, when it comes to it, at the end of the day, Notre Dame is like my grades in high school. We'll leave it at that. They're up, and they go way down. Then they go back up for just a second. And then I start watching cartoons. I did my work in high school. So I compare my grades going up and down to how Notre Dame is as a college football program. So look at Cincinnati, because Cincinnati these past couple of years they've been kind of, I don't know if it's flying under the radar or like you said earlier about how biased the college football playoff committee is and how it's going to change. But Cincinnati's been flying under the radar, and I definitely wouldn't be surprised at all that they will win this game. And Notre Dame will fall down and crack.
Isaiah, who you got? You got Cincinnati or Notre Dame?
This is very, very tough, but give me 1 second, guys. Is it there?
Wait, you gonna go with the teddy bear you have there, or are you actually gonna show us the?
I feel like he's going to go
our
with
Big
Notre
Skin
Dame.
Pick'em is famous for props. It's very
It's
famous
Notre
for
Dame.
props. It is like
Yep, you're right.
college football game day on ESPN. For this game, I'm going with the Irish. Give me the Irish.
I don't know what's college football to know. That is insane.
Here's why I am going with the Irish. It is because Marcus Freeman, who is their defensive coordinator, he came from Cincinnati. He knows all the ins and outs.
Get some help.
How about no?
This guy, Marcus Freeman, is going to be the difference maker of this game. He knows all the ins and outs of that Cincinnati offense, having worked in Cincinnati just last year under Luke Fickell before he came to Notre Dame. I expect Notre Dame's defense to shut down that high-powered Cincinnati offense, and I think it's going to, like you said, Trevor, it's going to be a sluggish game between these two teams. But I just think that ultimately Notre Dame prevails. Notre Dame will prevail in a very sluggish, slow-scoring type of game because I don't really trust Notre Dame's offense. I think Notre Dame's defense won't be able to handle that offense of Cincinnati. Give me Notre Dame to win. Go Irish.
Casey King is going to go with Cincinnati on the upset, but it's going to be a close one. And he says, Isaiah, get that leprechaun out of here. But we now move on.
You're talking about the leprechaun he had in Square 3 because I got.
Oh, boy. But, gentlemen, now we're in the world of the NFL. We got some. I think this is probably an Isaiah game. The Seattle Seahawks versus the 49ers. The 49ers right now are in some hot trouble. They came out sluggish against Green Bay, but made a surge in the second half, but wasn't enough to seal the deal. If they come out like they played in the first half against Seattle, they ain't going to win. So I'm going to stick with Seattle because Russell Wilson has done phenomenal things in the last minutes of the fourth quarter, and it's ridiculous. And I don't think the 49ers can hang on to Russell Wilson and what he does in this part of this season. So I'm going to go with Seattle. Isaiah, who are you going with?
Are you really even going to ask me this question? I think this should be a no-brainer. I'm going with my 49ers. Have you seen Seattle in the last couple of weeks? They look like absolute trash. Russell Wilson's been great. Tyler Lockett's been great. Metcalf's been great. But what has not been great for the Seattle Sea Chickens? It's that their defense. We've talked all year long, last year about how their defense was so porous. You just let Kirk Cousins and the Minnesota Vikings torch you on last Sunday. Kirk Cousins was 30 of 38, 323 yards and 3 touchdowns. You let Alexander Madison, not Dalvin Cook, Alexander Madison run for over 112 yards on you. And then Justin Jefferson, he was fantastic. I expect this game to be a high-scoring game because I think that Russell Wilson, he's going to be doing his thing. I think the Niners defense, I don't really trust that secondary right now. And the Seattle defense is just terrible. And Kyle Shanahan has had a lot of success going up against Pete Carroll and that Seattle defense. I think the Niners are going to be able to run all over that Seattle defense. I think Eli Mitchell has a big day. If you have him in fantasy, I really recommend you guys to start him. And I think that the 49ers, with that running game, I think Jimmy G will be able to have a really efficient day because I think you're going to see wide receivers, tight ends all over the field wide open because that Seahawks secondary hasn't proven to be able to stop anybody. Give me the 49ers in a very high-scoring battle. I'm going to go with San Francisco winning 31-27.
And John, who you got? Do you got Seattle or do you got the Niners? Who you got?
I think sure, and I say I would probably be surprised or not surprised with my pick, but I can't trust Seattle in this game. I mean, my gosh, you lose to Tennessee in overtime, and you make Alex Madison isn't a ball. Let's put that there, but he's not a Tony Pollard. He's not a what Michelle Michelle was in 2019, what Tark really used to be. He's not one of those guys right now, or no. Dalvin Cook is, but frankly, at this point, I don't trust Seattle. I think Seattle's going to lose this game in a very close one. Like I said, they are a fourth quarter type of team in terms of the forwards. First 4 to 6 days, they play really well. But right now, they're fourth in the NFC West. Again, I know it's only week 4. They're 1-2, 1-3 right now in the season. It's not looking good. You score 30. I mean, my gosh, you went from scoring 30 going to overtime against Tennessee to scoring barely 17 points against the Minnesota Vikings defense. That I'm sorry, who do they really have? The guys that they have now, that some of the same players that used to be there are a former shell themselves. They're getting older. They're not the same. Their defense is garbage. You had the failed experiment with Yannick Ngakoue from a couple of seasons ago, who is now, I think, with the Baltimore Ravens. So I'd pick Seattle to lose this game in a close one. If you can't beat the Vikings, who have a terrible garbage defense, how do you think Seattle's offensive line is going to hold up against Bosa, Armstead, and D4 and all those guys?
And Casey King will help us close out this part of Pigskin Pick'ems. Both teams look shaky. Doesn't like either one of them, but he's going to go with the Niners in a close one, 30-28. But he wouldn't be surprised if Seattle wins it. I think that's what we're kind of agreeing to. It's like it's going to be close, but Seattle is not that far behind from stealing that game. Though I picked Seattle because of that reasoning, but it really could go, you could say, either or, depending on how the fourth quarter goes for Seattle. But now, for the last but not least for our Pigskin Pick'ems, ladies and gentlemen, we got the homecoming. Tom Brady returns to Foxborough. I think this is a no-brainer. What I saw the Patriots go through last week, and Mac Jones not really creating any magic for the Patriots. So I'm gonna go Tom Brady. He's just gonna show up Bill Belichick and just beat him. He knows everybody on that team already. He's been there for how many years? He knows the ins and outs of every weakness. It's gonna be, we can just say it's gonna be a butt whooping probably with all that talent. But who knows? Maybe Mac Jones can really, stun Tom Brady and actually give Tom Brady a run for his money. But I'm gonna go Tampa Bay on it. Isaiah, who you got? You got Tom Brady or Bill Belichick and Mac Jones?
I think that Mac Jones will be able to put up an okay performance because that pass rush for the Bucs hasn't been able to get home all season long. I don't know why that's the case. The secondary, Richard Sherman's not going to play because he just got signed. He's not in shape. So you're missing him. You're missing Dean. You're missing Davis. You're missing Murphy Bunting. All four of your top corners are out. So I think Mac Jones will be able to have a good day. But Tom Brady is pissed off. He wants revenge on Bill Belichick for Bill Belichick wanting to get rid of him when he thought that Tom Brady had nothing left in the tank. Tom Brady's pissed off. He wants to go there and show Bill Belichick up, and I think he will do that against the Patriots defense, who he has known for a long time. He's practiced against for a long time. He knows what Bill Belichick is going to throw at him, and I think that I would not be shocked if he puts up a 40-burger on Bill Belichick and the New England Patriots. So give me Tom Brady and the Buccaneers to win this game. I'm actually going to pick Tom Brady and the Bucs to win by a final score of 41-17.
Oh boy. John, who do you got? You got Tom Brady and the Buccaneers, or Belichick and Mac Jones and the Patriots?
I would hope nobody would be surprised by my pick. We all like to have reunion episodes of our favorite old shows, and maybe somebody goes back to Friends or recent episodes of shows we used to watch. This reunion, unlike some of those old shows that have reunion episodes, this reunion is not going to go well for Bill Belichick here. I mean, my goodness, how can you bet against Tom Brady? There's a ton of emotion. I know people talk about, what happened there at the end between Brady and Belichick, but regardless of that, they've been professional, and they still have a true respect for each other, regardless of whatever rift and media said that they had. There's going to be a ton of emotion. It's been 20 years almost, over 20 years since he got his first shot in the NFL in terms of starting. But now Tampa is going to go in here and give New England another loss on the season. It's going to be a lot of emotions for Tom Brady and his Bucs team. I mean, especially for Tom Brady, because if it wasn't for Bill Belichick being on the Patriots team, would we be talking about this game? Would we be talking about Bucs being two-time Super Bowl champions in 20 years? Who knows? But it's definitely going to be a very fun game to watch. But I cannot and will not again bet against Tom Brady.
All right, gentlemen, that wraps up our Power 5 not Power 5. Wow. It's that late hour coming in. Our pigskin pick'ems. I'm already hinting out towards our Power 5, ladies and gentlemen. So let me make my wonderful way over to our Power 5 segment and let it begin.
Персональный спутник.
Gentlemen, we are back with a Power 5 segment, which we're going to stay in the world of college football on this. It's so the Power 5 is the biggest surprises in the college football season after the first month of the season that we've seen. So biggest surprises, you can go into a short explanation about it because the show is running already a little bit longer than anticipated. So, keep your responses short and sweet and straight to the point. I'll start with Isaiah.
All right. So 1 month into the college football season, it feels like time has flown by so damn quick. Let's start with number 5 on this list. The performance of Michigan. Jim Harbaugh is on the hot seat. Michigan was terrible last year. I thought that with new coordinators coming in and Jim Harbaugh being on the hot seat and really not that good of a quarterback, I thought that Michigan was going to struggle a lot, and they've surprised me. They've been really good at stopping the run. They've been really dominant at it. They've been really dominant running the football, and I think that Michigan could honestly, if they can beat Wisconsin this weekend, I know they have Penn State. Trevor, is that Penn State game at Michigan or is that in Penn State?
I'm not too sure.
Yeah, we'll let our producers check on that for a bit, but that if Michigan can beat Wisconsin, or it's at Penn State, if they can go in at Wisconsin, beat Wisconsin, they beat Penn State, I think they have a legit shot to win the Big Ten with how they're playing right now. I'm very surprised by how Jim Harbaugh – go ahead, Trevor.
It's at Penn State, so it's probably going to be a whiteout.
Yeah, for sure. It's going to be a whiteout. It's going to be a tough environment, but I think Michigan. I'm not saying that they're the favorites to win the Big Ten, but they've surprised me so far with their performance, with how they're dominant, stopping the run, and also running the football. Number 4 on the list, Oregon State, man. I mean, the Beavers have been irrelevant for so long. They hired Jonathan Smith 3 years ago to try to turn that program around. I didn't think he was going to do it, and right now they are, I believe, Oregon State's 4-0. They beat Purdue. They just went into USC, which they had not beaten since 1960. Let's think about that, fellas. Oregon State had not beaten USC in the Coliseum since 1960. The last time they won, Elvis Presley was the top music star on the planet, and gas was only 2 cents. That's it. So it's been a long time since Oregon State had beaten USC. Or Jonathan Smith for sure has had that program turning around. I could definitely see them maybe challenging Oregon in the Pac-12 North to try to win the Pac-12 title. Number 3 on my list, it's got to be how great that Georgia defense is. I thought that Georgia's defense, Kirby Smart's always got a great defense, but I thought that Georgia's defense was going to be great as usual, but I didn't think it was going to be this great. They haven't given up a rushing touchdown all season long. Like, that's just insane in college football and also in the SEC. So props go up to Kirby Smart and also Dan Lanning and that Georgia Bulldog defensive staff. Number 2 on the list, Clemson. I mean, I think that we all anticipated Clemson to be up there like they are as usual, but who expected them to be 2-2 ending September? Like, that's a big shock, and their offense just looks utterly pathetic. I mean, I think they would not even score against the Jaguars defense right now if they played against the Jacksonville Jaguars. That's how bad their defense is. So I'm surprised with that. It's been a really big disappointment for Clemson, and they're already out of the college football playoff in September. Not in October or November, but in September. And last but not least, and Casey King, I hope you're watching because I think you will agree with me on this. My biggest surprise is how bad USC is. I think, Trevor and John, we all thought USC was going to be mediocre. We didn't think that, we didn't think that they were going to be great, but we thought that they could maybe challenge for the Pac-12 championship or, maybe win like 8 to 9 games, but they're 2-2 and their 2 losses are bad losses, man. They got stomped by Stanford at the Coliseum, a Stanford team that got whooped the week before against Kansas State 24-7. They could barely score on Kansas State. They go into the Coliseum and they beat USC 42 to like 28 or something like that. It was really bad. And then USC beats Washington State, but Washington State sucks anyways, in Pullman. And then the next week, they follow it up by losing to Oregon State 45 to 27. They lose by 18 points to Oregon State, a team that they had always beaten at the Coliseum. The last time Oregon State won was 1960 at the Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum, and Oregon State wasn't even in the Pac-12 at that time. So very, very disappointed by USC. I knew Clay Helton was going to get fired, but I didn't think that they were going to be this bad.
So for mine, the things for my Power 5, the thing that kind of got me interested is Coastal Carolina beating Kansas 49-22. How do you let that happen, Kansas? That is a surprise to me. I thought Kansas was going to keep it close and, play that type of ball game. You're a Power 5. You should be able to handle Coastal Carolina. Though you may lose, you probably, in my opinion, you would lose in a close fashion. I didn't know Coastal Carolina was just going to drop a butt whooping on Kansas like that. Like I said, ladies and gentlemen, 49-22. Just keep that in mind. The Coastal Carolina probably doesn't have 5-star athletes like Kansas probably does. Kansas probably has maybe a handful, and that's it. And it's probably split, you could say evenly on offense and defense. That's pretty much it. My next one is Clemson being 2-2 after 4 weeks of the college football playoffs. That was a little bit of a shocker for me. Like, though I knew they played Georgia and it was going to be a tough game, so you could give them a loss there. But I didn't think they were going to lose to NC State. I thought their second loss was going to become later in the season when it was just like, oh, maybe we don't have a chance at the college football playoffs. Maybe we have to just keep winning out, or it's like their opponents are just not getting ranked, and then they just fall into a trap game where it's like the Syracuse we saw one year, where they just fell victim to a team that shouldn't be there. And that happened towards them like more week 8, week 9 versus like a week 4. But that's kind of like a little bit of shocker for me for Clemson and along those lines. My number 3 is even more interesting. Fresno State, ladies and gentlemen. Fresno State is actually ranked 18.
Shout out Martin.
And yeah, for Martin as well. But Fresno being 18, they're an interesting bunch of athletes on that team. They fell short to Oregon, but they beat UCLA. So you don't know what this Fresno team is capable of. I can say they are right now, I would say, in the middle of the pack with 1 loss, taking care of business, and we'll see how they finish for the rest of the season. For me personally, I think they're going to finish in the top 15. But that's just me. And I didn't think Fresno State was going to get ranked this high, already being 18, and there's still a lot of mayhem left to go in the college football season. So it's very possible for them to maybe even finish 12. But we have to wait and see how the rest of the season goes for them. My number 2 surprising moment, I would say, is the top teams falling off and being more in the middle of the pack of the top 25. We're talking like teams that started off, normally in the top 10, but now sit in more towards like the bottom half of the top 25. So it's like those teams like Auburn normally doesn't sit there. Auburn's more in the upper top 15. They're on the bottom half. Ohio State's 11. We normally don't see Ohio State as 11 unless they lose a game that they shouldn't lose. But most of the time, they normally sit as an 8 seed most of the time. And then you have Michigan being 14 right now. They're normally in the number 10, numbers 9, give or take, or like number 12. Stuff like that. Teams that shouldn't be there at the lower half should be higher up. And then last but not least, ladies and gentlemen, I got to put Arkansas in the number 1 spot. Who would have thought they would cause some havoc in the college football world already? And after 4 weeks, they could cause some more havoc in week 5 with Georgia. And if they keep running the table, like I said, they're going to be crowned number 1 at some point. We're going to have to respect them on how they are. But when a team gets ranked number 1 that, somehow magically gets number 1 in the schedule that they have, they're going to get worn down and will have a loss. And they won't be able to run that table that they should be able to run. And it's going to show. It's going to be a game that's going to be critical, and that's going to prevent them from getting into the college football playoffs. And they're probably going to finish like a number 6 because of that 1 loss. But before I go to John, I see we got a comment trickling in. Oh, yes. Isaiah, not surprised on USC. They're pathetic. But I'll go to John. Do you have a Power 5 for the biggest surprises in the college football season after the first month?
My biggest, I would pick a couple here, so doing this randomly on top of my head, would be Clemson. I mean, we knew obviously it was going to be a lot of different offensive adjustments, not having Trevor Lawrence, quarterbacks and offensive playmakers you had before, losing a lot of guys from the championship game in 2020. It's 2020, guy from this past season. But man, it's really unfortunate. But Clemson to me is a little bit of a surprise there, and it really sucks to see a lot of those teams are like top 5 or top 8, top 10 are now in the bottom ranks. And I'll give Arkansas credit for right now through the first 4 weeks. They're a team that we didn't think they would be through the first 4 weeks right there. So I know Gillespie somewhere is celebrating there, and so hey, it's definitely awesome. But another one I would have to do is, I mean, I'll be honest with you, I don't know, just because I'm not gonna be like I say, oh, my team. We got a long way to go. But I will give credit though to, obviously you can say, oh, this is a stupid one. Obviously, Alabama. Obviously, we knew Alabama was gonna be a really good team this year. I think, despite regardless of that, well, even though I hate the name Alabama, I hate the A-word, the ability to continue recruiting very well despite losing your starting franchise quarterback, almost your entire offensive line, your receiver that just went to the Miami Dolphins. I can appreciate that to a certain extent. I'll be honest, that's my power 3 because I didn't know the power 5 was for tonight.
Understood. Fair enough, John. Casey King's Power 5 says his Power 5 is Oregon State's big upset on his Trojans, Clemson being a bust, Fresno State off to a good start, Utah sucking it up, and I thought they would have be a challenge for the Pac-12 South, and then Arkansas going off to a good start. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we will go into our final thoughts. Well, we'll try to make our final thoughts a lightning quick speed round since we're getting approaching to 90 minutes on tonight's show. A little longer than anticipated. We were off to a fast start, and we started slowing it down and trying our, Tom Brady game clock management and trying to manage our tonight's program. But as you can see, ladies and gentlemen, we're not great at time management here at the MI6 Sports Network. We all know that because cough, cough, New Year's Eve special, 6 hours long, ladies and gentlemen. I'll just put that out there for our time management.
Come on.
But yeah, I'll do my final thoughts and then I'll go around the horn. It's a great show tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Fantastic for all the reviews tuning in. It was great. I loved everyone tuning in. Good show turnout from all our fans. At some point, we had a lot of fans tuning in. I love it all. Keep coming back to the MI6 each week for all of our great shows and programs. We cover basically almost every day of the week if possible, if our schedule allows it. So if you like a certain person on our network, try to stick to those shows. And if you want to spice things up, check out to all the different shows that we have here on our network. I'll go to Isaiah. Any final thoughts for our viewers tonight?
Final thoughts is it was a great, great show. Glad to be back on No B.S. And I think we'll do it more frequently now, and the schedule will be consistent because, my schedule with the A's have finished, so I can do shows more frequently now, which is great. I want to thank Casey King. I want to thank David Lucas. I want to thank Ishmael Lancaster, Adam Barber, Ace, Catch Ace, J Mac, and myself tonight on Sports Minute. We'll be doing that show at around 9 p.m. Pacific time. It's going to be so much fun, so check in for that. Jesus Blackman, and I think that's it. But yeah, it was a great show. Thank you to all the fans for tuning in to our program tonight. I do want to give a shout out to my guy, Austin Reeves of the Los Angeles Lakers. He was my favorite player from Summer League. Guy got a 2-year standard contract and got promoted to the Lakers roster today. So really, really happy for him. And I hope that he does great this season for the Los Angeles Lakers. But yeah, that's my final thoughts.
And John, your final thoughts, my guy. Tonight's program was fantastic. Any final thoughts for our fans?
It was a good one. I can't say anything yet, but the podcast is pretty much going to be gone for about a year and a half, maybe 2 years. It just really depends on a lot of things. Going back to school for the degree here, so I'll be recording videos, but it's more just consistent on practicing my craft. So they won't be uploaded. The network isn't dead. We're just going to have to wait a while to see how things play out. I'm hoping to say something tomorrow, but we'll see. But it was good to come on, and can't wait for some more football this weekend.
All righty. And Casey King's final thoughts. Isaiah, I will be invading the Bay in November for my Rams versus your Niners game on that Monday night. Let's see how that happens.
Can't wait to see you, my man.
But ladies and gentlemen, that will do tonight for tonight's program on No BS. We're getting close to that 90-minute mark. So I think we can close it off tonight's program. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in. Enjoy the rest of your night. Enjoy all the games that are coming up this weekend. Thursday night football. going through college football Saturdays, NFL Sundays, and then starting back up with the week on Monday for Monday Night Football. So please be safe over the next couple of days, and be safe when you're out there. Enjoy your time with family and friends, and we all will see you in our next, No BS episode or any other of the MI6 programs that we have. Take care and so long.
Yeah. 3-6, Mafia.
Whoa, hey, yeah. Whoa,
Say what?
hey, whoa,
3-6, Mafia.
whoa,
It's going down.
whoa, hey,
Y'all know what time it is.
whoa, hey,
We ain't playing with you. In the club, in the street.